So who conducts a comprehensive evaluation? It would really depend on where, where you're going to be providing the evaluation. If it's at school, typically a certified school psychologist would provide the evaluation. If it's private, as a licensed school psychologist, as I am, can provide a psychoeducational evaluation. Clinical psychologists can also provide psychoeducational evaluations. And it will also depend on the nature of the evaluation. So for example, you might have heard that there are like neuropsychological evaluations compared to psychoeducational evaluations. And for that means that a neuropsychologist is going to be able to provide that type of evaluation. And a neuropsychologist is someone who is a clinical psychologist, but also specialized in neuropsychology. And basically, the neuropsychology side is going to provide more information about the relationship between how the brain works and the behavior. So typically, for neuropsychological evaluations, they're going to be, again, it depends on the reason of the referral, what type of evaluation you're going to provide. But let's say for the neuropsychological evaluation, if someone has a medical condition, that could be something in order to fully understand how the brain is working and how that is affecting the brain. If you had an accident, even if you have a neurodevelopmental condition such as ADHD, it will really depend on what, but that could be one type of evaluation. The psychoeducation evaluation is typically done when something is not going okay with a child at school for many different reasons. So you kind of provide a full evaluation of those different areas that we were just discussing. And maybe then you need other type of evaluation. So as I said before, maybe you need an occupational therapist if you find out that more is needed to know more about visual perception or kinesthetic difficulties. Maybe if you find that someone is kind of language impaired, or if that child has language difficulties, then you want to include the speech pathologist, or even if the child could be within the autism spectrum, sometimes you want to include like a behavioral therapist or even a neurologist, right? So who conducts the evaluation, it's going to be also related to the type of evaluation that you're going to be administering.
Something else I want to add is that, so I'm in this group for other advocates and attorneys, and there was this newbie in the group that made a post. She was all up in arms because a special education teacher was doing an academic assessment, I don't remember if it was the Wyatt or was some sort of like reading focused assessment. Is this even legal? She was saying.
Yes, it is.
Yes. The law says that the evaluation in question has to be done with somebody who is qualified to administer the assessment. A special education teacher that has certain credentials is qualified to do certain assessments. Can they do IQ testing? No.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, they're doing functional behavioral assessments off of guesstimations in their mind of what they think a function of a behavior is, that they're not qualified to do, in my opinion, but they're able to do it through the school district, right? Mm-hmm. They wouldn't be able to do it if they worked for an ABA private company. Mm-hmm. Even if you're a behavior tech, you can't do a functional behavioral assessment unless you're under the direct supervision 5 to 10% of the time of a BCBA. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother topic, but no, there are different people. You have to check the evaluation in question and see who is the qualified person to administer it. And then you can determine if it's appropriate or not.
Correct. Yes. And again, it depends on the type of evaluation, because sometimes, let's say that this special teacher can administer all the academic portion of the testing, and then maybe a clinical psychologist can administer the IQ and more like cognitive testing. So it really depends on what you're administering.
Right. And if you want to get deeper into language, you're going to need an SLP, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So there's different kinds of people that, in some cases, one psychologist can do all the testing. In other cases, you're going to need 3 or 4 different professionals or more I also want to bring up a really important point, and we're going to get into this more later, and then we can move on to the next slide. But if you do, it is possible to do partial testing through the school district and other components of the testing privately. You can make a choice to let the school district evaluate in certain areas and make a choice to contribute a private evaluation report for others. And we can talk more about that as we go on.
Okay.
Let's change the slide.